Hello friends, so for today's video I'm going to be talking about a couple of books, and specifically I'm going to be going into some spoilers for those books so that I can properly rant about them. Both of these books I ended up mentioning in the same video. It was a worth the hype style video, and the way I like to go about those is not to just present popular or well-known works and then be like yes or no about whether or not I think they're worth the hype, but rather look at the amount of ratings they have, the average ratings, give you some information about the books in general, and then have the books ranked based off of what the average ratings are, and then I compare how I would rank the selections of books for that given video. And both of the books that I'm going to be talking about today were mentioned in that video. One of them is Piranesi, and then Every Summer After. Very drastically different books. One of them is kind of a speculative science fiction fantasy story, thriller almost. It's very much it transcends genre. And then Every Summer After is contemporary romance. So really very different from one another. Pretty much whatever Piranesi wasn't is Every Summer After. But regardless, these were two books that both of them I did not end up loving, and they were kind of on the lower end of the ranking. And for both, I kept saying, ugh, I want to be able to tell you what didn't work for me, but that would mean I'd have to spoil them. And a bunch of you were like, you gotta talk about it, because you can't just leave us hanging like that. So I told all of you, I promise I will eventually get around to doing this. And now I feel bad because there is a part of me that's like, this is gonna be so, it's been so long since I said I would do that I'm like, it's probably gonna be so disappointing to finally like see what I was thinking. But I'll go ahead and start with Every Summer After, and then we'll get to Piranesi because that's the one I think a lot of you care about. So we'll start with Every Summer After. This was a contemporary romance story, as I said, that follows a young girl who, it shows from the time that she is a child, and she has this best friend, and she is with him a lot in their summer vacations, and then she gets to know him really well, his family really well, his brother really well, and they just end up becoming the best of friends, and eventually it blossoms into something more. And then you are looking at present day. She is an adult. It's been years since they've seen each other. Clearly something happened between the two of them, but his family member has passed away. And not only did she care about him very much, and thus his family member, but she also knew the family member really well because of the fact that they grew up so close. And so she ends up going to the funeral and trying to be there for him during this difficult time. And it's kind of bringing back all these feelings that she had for him, that he had for her, and you're wondering as the reader, like, what happened? They seemed so perfect. You're going back and forth between their childhood and them now in present day, and you're trying to piece together what happened. And, okay, so I kept thinking it was going to be something important, because you find out that his father passed away because of some health concerns, or some health issues, I should say. And so it really put him on this path from the time he was a young boy. He wanted to become a doctor. He wanted to help people who also had similar health issues, and he wanted to do anything he could to save lives because it was awful for him losing his father. And I thought with this book that the thing that pulled them apart was that you were going to find out that the main character also has certain health issues that would result in her having the potential to pass away at a younger age, similar to the love interest's father. And then she didn't want to put him through that or something, and so she broke up with him but never told him. And then, oh my gosh, the reason that they broke up is pretty much because the main character is so stupid. So when they were first starting to date, they only really saw each other in the summertime, and his academics were very important to him. And so they kind of sort of started to date over the summer, but then he told her, I don't think it's fair to ask you to not see anybody when we're not together, when we're in the school year and we're living our lives and we're not together. I don't think it's fair to tell you not to see anybody, so I'm not going to ask you to do that, but I'm also not going to ask you to just be dating me. I don't think that's fair because I might not be able to check in very much. I'm going to be working on homework a lot. I just don't think it's fair to either of us, but I want you to know that in the long run, I see us together. I just think temporarily this long distance and stuff isn't going to work, especially with how much I'm trying with school. And she's really upset about that. She's like, why would you start dating me, but then basically break up with me? And so things are like a little tense for them. But eventually they do start dating, and they're official, and they're together, and they're so in love with each other. And then he goes to this kind of before college program when he is 18. He gets accepted into this really difficult, prestigious program. And it is much more difficult than he was expecting, and he's feeling really overwhelmed. He kind of grew up in a small town. Now he's like, okay, well, I'm a little fish, and now I'm among all these hot shots, and I was the big fish in a little pond, and now I'm with all these people who are so smart. And he's like, what am I doing? And he's kind of flipping out a little bit. And he's getting really overwhelmed and really stressed. And she's like, why isn't he calling me every day? Why isn't he talking to me all the time? Which I kind of get. I understand that when you don't know what's going on and this person's in a new environment and they're around all these other people that are like-minded and just as intelligent, if not more intelligent. And I can understand the insecurities bubbling up. And so she's like, oh, why? I don't know what to do. I don't hear from him very much. And he tells her, like, I'm really stressed, whatever. She gets mad at him and she's like, you need to be talking to me more. Why aren't you talking to me more? So he sends her this letter, this note, and he tells her, like, I think that maybe if I'm going to really do this, if I'm really going to go and pursue my education now that he's entering college and he's in this current program, he's like, I really think I need to give it my all. And I also think, like, there's so much that you're passionate about. She's really passionate about writing. He's like, I really think you should give it your all. I think the both of us owe it to each other to let us do that without kind of resenting each other when we miss time with each other, talking to each other, all this stuff. And he's like, I think maybe we should plan on like a once a week phone call or something. But the rest of the time, we should just kind of focus on school. And she's so mad. And she's so mad that she sleeps with his brother. And I was like, what the heck? That was your leap of logic here? You're like, oh, I'm so wounded. How could he do this again? It doesn't matter that we're 18 years old and that I feel like his plan kind of makes sense. No, I'm so hurt. I'm going to hook up with his brother. I'm not saying it would have been fine if it was someone else, but his brother is extra salt in the wound. And so I'm like, dude, this is the dumbest woman in the world. I was so annoyed with her. And then in modern day, she's like, she finally tells him, and he knew. His brother eventually told him because she broke up with him because he told her, like, I'm so sorry. You know what? I think I was just overwhelmed, but I actually do think that I can make the time. And you're right. Like, we deserve to also not just pursue school, but each other. And we can work for this. And I love you. And, like, I hope you'll marry me someday. And then she's like, we can't be together. And then she doesn't tell him why. And eventually his brother did, you find out. And then, so in modern day, which has been 12 years, I'm pretty sure was the amount of time. And so it's been 12 years, and then he pretty much is just like, I'm glad that we're past that now. And then they're together. It's so quick after the big reveal, and I understand pacing for the story to have this big reveal happen and understand, like, what it was that forced them apart and everything. I understand that you want to kind of save that, but I'm like, you can have a little more time after that reveal. Let me know what she's done to work on. I understand that she was very young and that she didn't have a lot of experience in relationships. And I'm not saying that she couldn't get to a point where maybe she wouldn't feel so insecure within a relationship or anything like that. But we need to make sure that I just wish we'd had seen some time of her working on her, because, like, there's references to her seeing a therapist. And the references to her seeing a therapist are like, I feel like there's this negativity toward it. Like, my therapist corrected me on her name once. And that's like kind of the vibe you get from what she thinks of therapy. But I would have really liked to have seen, because I think that would have been actually really, it'd be hard to read, but I think it would have made for a really compelling story where you're reflecting on why certain people have these certain attachment styles or these certain kinds of insecurities in their relationships that cause them to go down certain routes and justify certain things in their mind, and how they are a person who is worthy of existing and forgiving themselves. And like, if we had really gotten into that, I think it could have been very good. But it was like, I slept with your brother. Yeah, I know. I'm still kind of mad at you for that. But also, you're the one for me. Happily ever after. It was just too quick. So that's why that book didn't work for me. But I mean, I didn't mind the writing and everything, so I'd still read something else by this author. I just thought the main character was such a dum-dum. Anyway, okay, Piranesi. So, Piranesi had a similar thing where I thought the book was going in one direction, and then when it turned out it was not going in that direction, the direction it was going in, for me, was not as good as what I had kind of imagined it to be, which is not to say that I think that I would have known what would have made this a better book, or that I would have written a better story, or anything like that. I just mean that the thing that I was connecting to isn't actually what it ended up being, and I kind of wished it had been. So I alluded to that when talking about Piranesi, and a lot of you are like, what did you think it was? So here we go. I thought so much of Piranesi was looking at the mind of someone who a lot of the rest of the population maybe isn't going to understand, because they do not have similar mental health things occurring with them, or certain kinds of, like schizophrenia, for example, something like that. And some of the language that was used when another individual is talking to our main character, they would say things like, you know, if you don't behave, I'll say, they're like, if you don't behave, they're going to try to kill you. And in my head, I was thinking, like, are they going to, like, lobotomize them? Is it something like that? And I was thinking, like, how sad, and also the environment around the main character. It sounds like it is not up to par. And I thought it was kind of, I thought a lot of it was in the character's mind, and that a lot of it was sort of, referencing how little there is actually in the way of caring for people who are in need of help, whether that be in their environment, whether that be in our understanding of what they're experiencing, or even the people that are trying to help them, their understanding of what they're experiencing. I thought it was an examination of how little we really end up humanizing other people. Like, they are people, they should be treated as humans, but we kind of see them as separate, and like, not you and I, like, not we in that way, but I just mean, like, collectively as a society. I thought it was a critique of how we treat and view people who are not seen as mentally stable. And so I was like, wow, this is so powerful, this is so impactful. And I was really gripped by being in this character's mind, and then I was, like, fearful alongside them, and I was on the edge of my seat alongside them, and I felt very much like I was experiencing this mystery alongside them. And then that wasn't what the book was at all. And I was like, oh, well, okay, it's not an examination of how we treat people and their mental states. And not to the degree that I thought it was. I mean, you could still say that that is part of the story. Certainly by the end, and when the character comes back to our world and they're kind of reintegrating themselves into society, you could still say that there are aspects to the, like, almost PTSD and things like that, and trying to live within a society when you've experienced this incredible trauma. So, like, that's still present. It's just not what I thought it was initially. And I'm gonna say a certain movie that I think paralleled what I thought that this book was kind of doing. And ironically, I think this movie was based off of a book initially, but I don't want to spoil the movie for anybody in case they haven't seen it. But I'm going to say, and I'll put a thing on the screen that says spoilers, so if you want to skip ahead, you can skip ahead. But I'm going to say the movie now. So here's your opportunity to skip ahead. Okay, I'm going to say the movie now. Shutter Island, for those of you that have seen Shutter Island, for a lot of the movie, it seems like it's a thriller. It seems like it's a mystery. It seems like, what's going on here? What's going on with the way they treat him? Why are people acting this way toward him? And then when you find out that a lot of it's in his mind and that he's at risk of being lobotomized and things like that, you're like, no. And it's so sad, and I thought was really impactful. That's what I thought was sort of the situation with Piranesi. And then when it wasn't, it weirdly felt like such a letdown because I had built something in my head that this book was not, and that's not the book's fault. I still think it's compelling. I certainly see why some people feel really moved by it, and I think there's references, of course, to other stories. My dog is having a puppy dream, so if you end up hearing weird noises, it's her. But anyway, I certainly think there's a lot of references, some that are very obvious, some that are maybe more up for interpretation, but some of them felt like almost like Greek philosophy. And there's a specific part referencing like the view of mountains and like, how dare you tell me that my mountains are not comparable to the others, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing very poorly, but there's a lot of really interesting things that you could draw from this book. It just, because it was not this thing that I built it up to be, it just sort of went downhill for me. I would still read something else by this author, and I would still recommend this book to people because at the very least it's an experience and there's something very different to take from it from person to person. So I can see it being something a lot of people really enjoy, and I get why so many of you love it. It just did not work for me as a result. But anyway, that is the explanation about these two books when I previously was like, I can't say, and then that was probably so annoying. So there you go. Now you have the explanation for both of those books. But anyway, I would love to know your thoughts. Typically, I say to people, if you want to chat spoilers, write spoilers, and then enter. But this whole video, the point is that I am talking spoilers. So you have free reign to say whatever about these books. You can talk spoilers without spoiler tag, which I don't know why I'm treating like that. I don't know why I'm treating that like it's such a big, exciting thing, because it's not a big deal. It's just like you either type out the word or you don't. And this time you don't have to. It's not a big deal. But anyway, that's it for these two books. I'd love to know your thoughts. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.